Deputy Cassells, and 15 minutes, because other members have asked to be strict on time this morning, and everyone will get back a second time.
Thanks, Chair.
15 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome to the witnesses. There's been a lot of figures already quoted this morning, a lot to yourself, Chairman, as well. And I suppose we just want to try and keep things straight so we can focus on drilling down into the figures. And I know, Mr. Breslin, that in answering the Chairman in respect of the 637 million, you said that was not inclusive of VAT on the 637. Now, that is at odds with what then Minister Leo Varadkar said in April 2016, when he said it was an all-in figure, inclusive of VAT, inclusive of add-ons, inclusive of contingencies. So that is a direct contradiction of what your boss, the then Minister for Health, said at that particular time. That was noted this week in the Irish Independent in their editorial, referred to as hobgoblin, because you cannot have a situation where the Secretary-General is referring to that figure here this morning, saying it's not inclusive of VAT, and the Minister for Health saying it was. On the 637...
Can I just...
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. So as we have, I think, illustrated, there are different elements of the project being funded in different ways. It's important, and I can check the record, that when anybody is referring to a figure, that they are referring to the same parts of the project coming within that figure. And so we would have to compare like with like. That's an important point.
You can't get more conclusive than the Minister saying all in. All in. In respect of the 637, and it was referred to and asked, and I just want to clarify this, Phase A groundworks at the time of the business case were being priced at what?
So Phase A was based on the receipt of tenders in 2016. It was Phase A and Phase B. So the Phase A works are 84 million approximately net of that. Okay,
so 100 million kind of all. Okay. Phase A works are nearing completion, is that correct?
Correct, they're nearing completion.
Okay, and what is that likely to come in? Is it likely to come in on budget around that 100 million mark?
Correct.
It is, and just important to note that of course had a detailed design. So that's coming in pretty much on budget, which means then that based on the 637, Phase B of that 637 was coming in 500 mil plus. And yet we see a project where the add-ons alone are now equaling or exceeding the original business case price, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite amazing that you have a situation, and Mr. Breslin, you referred to Table 3 in terms of the comparison of the business case versus the guaranteed maximum price, and the percentage difference there, I think, comes in at 40%. I mean, that's surely misleading this committee, or indeed any other committee, to come before when we see that's quite frankly not the case.
Sorry, I'm not going to accept that I'm in a position here where I'm misleading the committee.
Okay.
That is a fair comparison. You can do a different comparison, but that is a very fair comparison. It's comparing like with like. It's comparing with the tender with the outcome of the contract zone. You can do your own comparison, but you don't need to say that I'm trying to mislead the committee. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Well, anyone can accept a small change in price, but a business case that was coming in at 637, and noting that the groundworks actually could have come in on price, and then a situation where you have an over-doubling of the actual construction costs, is simply, it's quite unfathomable for the rest of the public. Talk to me about the 346 million that was added then on top of the 637. Here we have a public procurement process, 637 million, and hocus pocus, an immediate add-on of 346. This despite the fact that, as I said, in April 2016 on the 6-1 news, then Minister Varadkar said it was 650 all in, including VAT. So was the Minister misled by people here that he was able to go out and say categorically, based on advice from people here, that it was 650 million all in? Please explain that to me and the people listening. How can a minister be able to say that? Because he's basing that on the advice that he's getting from the professional people in this room. How can is he misleading the Irish public by the advice he's getting? Explain that to me.
These are political charges.
No.
This is
this is not political charge. I don't care what politics the man is, but the man goes out on the 6-1 News and tells the people 650 million.
Pre-tender. Pre-tender.
I have to be fair. If you have a question with the Minister's words, there's only one person who can answer.
The Minister...
But he's informed by somebody. He didn't dream it up, Chairman.
The time period you're referring to is pre-tender. The 637 is a tender price.
Okay. And so, again, I'm asking how he can get that so wrong when he can tell the people of Ireland that's the price all in. Like, are you guys... it's not a political charge, Chairman.
No, I know that.
Okay? The Minister only makes a comment based on the professional advice from the board, from the SecGen, from the people that he is listening to. He's taking the information from them. So I'm asking the people who provided the information how he can be given information that is categorically then turns out to be so wrong.
Because there's a procurement process to complete. The core of this issue, and I have said at committee, I've said it here today, I am absolutely unhappy with this situation.
Okay.
I'm absolutely unhappy. But the core of the issue is the movement from Phase A to Phase B through the procurement process adds 450 million to the cost. That is enough of a shift and enough serious to concentrate all of our efforts in trying to understand that.
With a successful bidder, would they
referring back to elements that precede the procurement process is a separate thing entirely.
Well, the Chairman kind of asked you the point earlier, and I'll ask you again. Was a successful bidder lowballing then to get the job on the basis that they came in on budget for a detail on Phase A, but are so spectacularly wrong? Were they lowballing to get the job? And were you guys had then, because you've actually signed up with this, and then you're committed to a project that spirals out of control? Yes, please, Mr. Costello.
And just to go back to the basis for going for two-stage tendering.
Okay.
Internationally, and the history in major projects in Ireland as well, is that they're tendered on the traditional form, which means that there isn't actually cost certainty when you start. And then what generally happens, and it's not just Ireland and the UK, is that there's a confrontational approach where the contractor does indeed set out to recover from maybe a very competitive tender in the first instance, and then you spend 3 or 4 years, and it's at the end of the day, you then realise how much it has cost you. So in terms of deciding on a procurement approach here, we spent at least a year looking at what's the best, what's done internationally, what works best. And at the time, there was in the government procurement, there was a move to go towards design build, and indeed when we took over in 2013, the intention at the time was that the designers would be procured on the basis that eventually the contractor then would be expected to do his own design based on an exemplar design from the designers. So in that year we spent interrogating what is the best way to do. We settled on the fact that design build in this case, because of the complexity of it, wasn't the most appropriate form. And in hindsight, that has proven that there would have been no tenders if they were expected to fund the cost of a design. And indeed, in recent times, both here and in the UK, the whole design build process in relation to certainly how it delivered schools has been shown to have issues, and so delivering a children's hospital, then having an employer design was extremely important. So I hope you can just understand the background.
And Chairman, I want to say, and I'm glad Mr. Costello has come in, because I know his long professional career in this country. And can I ask you, Mr. Costello, from your time dealing with big projects in this country, and aware of some of the iconic things that you've been involved in, such as Croke Park and others, have you ever had a situation in your previous professional life where the bill cost has gone up by that magnitude that we see here on any project throughout Ireland?
And Deputy, it's important to remember the process we went through here. So
I do. I appreciate that. But I'm just asking.
No, but I will answer the question. Don't worry. The process of the two-stage bid just finished in November. So at that stage, the design was fully complete and coordinated, and the bill of quantities was worked up based on that completed design, and the contractors have verified certainty around that. They've also, in terms of the three main contractors, which is BAM, Jones Engineering and Mercury, in terms of their efforts being coordinated, they have validated the programme, and, as I said, the coordination of everything goes into it, because it is a very complex project. And at the end of all that, we've completed the involvement in terms of the user engagement, which has been going on up until recently, and also the statutory issues. So now there's certainty around the inputs, and now there's certainty as we go forward. Now, that, and as Mr. Pollock said earlier, we're really disappointed in how it has progressed from the 983 to this. But this is the end of a process now, which we set out to do 5 years ago, is to bring certainty before we started the main contract works. So there's a huge amount of cost to be expended on this project, yes, relative to what's spent.
Okay.
And we're in a position that, as we set out on the journey of spending that, we have certainty on cost and programme.
Okay.
And there are, just on your question,
yep,
sorry, no, just
please,
there are a number of projects where, certainly on the pharmaceutical industry, which is private sector, for instance, a project that was done by in North Dublin and Cruise Rat some years ago, set out to be 400 million, and at the end of the day it cost close to $1 billion. Even recently, and I was looking at this in terms of Battersea Power Station, which is high profile, it's private sector again. In terms of the refurbishment of the power station, they set out to spend 800 million, and now it's targeted 1.2 billion.
I'm not interested in what the Brits are. Can I?
I know, but
It's
of a scale. We don't have many absolute projects.
Well, you've had some very big ones. Can I ask? Yeah. Because, Chairman, people here have admitted concern. They've admitted that they're worried. There's obviously a review initiated that's going to cost a significant amount of money, but then people are explaining everything away down to complexity, as if we are not complex creatures and that, you know, it is a complex project and just please accept that so we can move on. That doesn't tally. That's what people find confusing. And so I would ask again, Mr. Costello, in your previous life with CISC, would you have accepted, or indeed would the company have accepted a situation where things were got so spectacularly wrong to the point of going from the business case of 637 or even accepting the 983 to nearly $1 billion over that cost? Would that have been accepted?
It wouldn't be accepted by anybody. But
I refer to in terms of how that would have been handled, because there is an anger here in terms of because it's public money, it's acceptable. Like, for example, if you went to the GEA at the time and told Liam Mulvihill, you know, if you want a roof on that Hogan stand, by the way, we're putting the price up by $500 million. The GEA would have marked people off the site. Can you understand that?
I can, and I'll tell you an initiative that I took and the company I worked with took in relation to Aviva Stadium, which was bid on a traditional basis where there wasn't a guaranteed maximum price. And we worked on, this is the power of collaborative working. We had a fantastic relationship there, and at the end of the day, it's the quality of the relationship which delivered a high quality job and where the cost was set against a guaranteed maximum price. But a year into the job, the FAI and the IRFU advised that they were concerned because the costs were growing. And I put in place an initiative with the client there that we'd set a cap, and within 3 or 4 months we'd set a guaranteed maximum price. And in a way, that's the same sort of philosophy as we're using here, is that before we spend the money, we set out to results, and that worked extraordinarily well there. We did likewise in Dundrum Shopping Centre, which was a huge job.
The results are not the same here. Chairman, it's been said earlier in terms of me making political charges, there's a basis maybe in terms of why statements are being made and in terms of what the members of committees and indeed the Dáil have been told, because I would refer to the fact that our colleague Barry Cowan on the 18th of September last did ask a question in the Dáil to Minister Harris in respect of the budgeted cost of the Children's Hospital, the costs incurred to date, and if everything was going to be on budget, and he was told it was. Now that's on the 18th of September, specifically asking was everything on target. and Minister Harris answered him. But we now know, of course, that at the time the Minister had been told on the 27th of August that this was already out of control. So the Dáil was misled, was it not?
The commercial process was still underway at this stage.
Okay, am I getting it right? Am I getting it right?
What the Minister answered was the budget for the hospital, and he was also asked on the profile to date, was it on profile? And as we've just heard from the Stage A works, they were on profile. What we didn't have was an agreed guaranteed maximum price, and we didn't have that until November. In media queries post that period, as we came up towards that, we were clear that there was a Stage B process that was still to complete.
Are you telling me that at the time of the question in September, you were not aware that this was spiralling towards the £1.5 billion?
We had concerns about the emerging trends, but it was still...
emerging, please don't use words like that. Were you...
I can use the words if that's what my concern was.
Excuse me. Were you aware that this was heading to a point of 1.5 billion in September? It's a yes or no answer.
We did not have those figures.
Okay,
at that
let me
stage.
see. Let me put it this way. Were you aware it was heading towards an indicative figure of well over £1 billion?
We were aware of the trends being flagged by the development.
This is nonsense. You either were aware that this was not going to be 983 or not. Is that a fair point?
I've said that I've said it over and over again.
So why would you allow your minister go into the Dáil and not disclose that to Deputy Cowan when he asked the question?
He answered as to what the budget was. This was a commercial...
So you're splitting hairs. You're taking, this is typical. This is typical of the department. No, it's a straight question, and it's a straight answer. What you're telling me is that you weren't prepared to answer the question asked because you didn't want that information getting out into the public. And you didn't ask the question specifically in terms of you're referring to me now as trends. There was trends.
Okay, Mr. President, before you answer the question, and you will not be interrupted, and secondly, you will not answer at the Public Accounts Committee for statements by the Minister on the floor of the Dáil. If somebody has an issue with what a Minister says, any Minister on the floor of the Dáil, that's being...
Chairman, who writes the answers? Who writes the PQ answers for the Minister?
Sorry.
Who writes the PQ answers for the Minister? Chairman, that's an unreal interjection.
The SecGen is responsible for the information you provided.
Yeah.
But the words of the Minister on the floor of the chair...
They were written by the department.
The words of the Minister on the floor of the chair, on the floor of the Dáil, are a matter to be discussed in the Dáil chamber. And what I'm saying is, you're responsible for your actions, and the Minister is answered. The Minister is not here to answer, and in the Minister's words, whatever advice he gets from yourself, anything the Minister says in the floor of the Dáil is answerable in the floor of the Dáil, not in the PAC. That's all. But answer the question interrupted about the public will be aghast, and that's why Deputy Cassells. It was in budget, but we knew there was a problem, so we say it's within budget because we didn't revise the budget. It's not splitting hairs. It's
but the important thing,
so let Mr. President answer the question.
The important thing, Chair, was the commercial process was underway. To have gone and named another figure in a situation where these gentlemen here were engaged in a commercial process to try and achieve the best value possible for the guaranteed maximum price for the taxpayer. The only reference point at that stage, the only stable and reliable reference point was what was the approved budget for the project, and that's what was given in the parliamentary reply.
Well, Chairman, you're protecting the witness.
I'm protecting the Minister who's not here. Well, protect any Minister who's not here.
Chairman, you're around a long time and you know who writes replies for Ministers,
I
Chairman.
do, and he's given you the answer. And really, we would say there's issues. Knowing there's an issue, the response that you could have, perhaps I suggest, the response you could have given was that it's under review, an indication. There was no indication given of a problem. That's kind of really where.
And at that point, was it going to be flagged to the Cabinet that there was potentially going to be a need for a review of all the costs that were spiralling out of control, given the trends that were emanating at that point?
So the important thing at that stage was to get a certainty around the guaranteed maximum price. as work packages were being costed and they were coming back in the early stages, they were coming back in online, particularly towards the latter stages, the Mech and Elec was coming in above what was originally estimated, but it was conjecture until the process was completed. So the stress that was placed on the development board was to complete the process with the best return for the taxpayer, and in parallel we also sought further detailed information and external review to try and inform a decision that would have to be made on the outcome of that guaranteed maximum price.
And members will get back again, but all members have indicated want to get in early.